Lift your lid. Welcome to Swift Talk with Sherry Swift, helping you experience explosive growth, moving from where you are to where you want to be. Say no to mediocrity and yes to the life you want and deserve. Here is your host, best-selling author, performance coach, and speaker, Sherry Swift.
Welcome to Swift Talk. My name is Sherry Swift, and I am your host for Swift Talk with Sherry Swift. Super excited about this conversation today. And before we jump into this very exciting conversation, I want to thank you, my listeners, for plugging back in with me today and choosing to be with me in this time. You have so many listening options, and I just want to thank you for being with me during this time. Now, onward to this very important conversation. Today, I am super honored to have as a guest on Swift Talk, Alexandria. Alexandria is a recent graduate from the Ross School of Business at U of M. She has just graduated within the last few weeks, off into her career very soon, has a very fresh memory of the college experience, and I'm very excited to have Alexandria as our guest to seed into the mindset of so many of our young people who are leaving and transitioning away from their high school experience into their college experience in just a few short months. So I'm super honored and excited to have Alexandria because number one, she's right from University of Michigan. Number two, because her memories are so fresh and we're super excited to hear from her and her fresh memories. And number three, she happens to be daughter. So we're super excited to have her here. Welcome to Swift Talk, Alexandria.
Hey, Mom. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited that you're here. So, Alex, today what I really want to do is I want to have a short conversation, a brief conversation about expectation for first-year college students, okay? If you could somehow or another frame up what might be three things that you might suggest for freshmen that are entering into the college experience in the fall of 2018? If you could offer maybe 3 or 4 things that you think might make their first year experience a little bit better, can you share a few of those things with us that might make it, from recent college graduate to, high schooler that's about to graduate? Can you share a few of those things?
So I think the first thing is that once you're coming out of high school, once you get into a setting where there's a lot of people who want to pursue more and get a higher education, a lot of people come in with the mind frame that they all think they know what's going on. And so you should come in expecting people to act like they have their stuff together and they know exactly what they want, how they want to get it. So you're going to have a lot of people who come in and say, oh, I want to be pre-med, oh, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a doctor. And although some people may have had experience in high school in some of these fields, they know for sure, majority of people don't really know what they want. And throughout their path and everything, they're not going to know how to get it unless they have like friends and family to help them. But it's a process that everyone's going to go through. So at any moment that, you feel confused and you don't know what else going on, know that everyone feels the same way. People just put on a really good facade and face like they actually do know. So expect to see people who act like they know what's going on, but nobody really does, even if they have a sibling who's there right now. Everyone's still on their own individual journey.
Okay.
I would also say expect yourself to change and, give yourself space to do so, because coming into college, sometimes you have an idea of who you want to be, that now you might be going into a space where you can evolve and develop into this person you always envisioned yourself into, or maybe you think you're already that person and you're happy, but expect to have experiences and friendships and relationships that will change who you are and how you see things and what you want out of life. So expect to have some things that kind of like shake the way you think and the way you feel about certain things. I would say expect that. Another thing that I would say is expect a change kind of like in how you eat and like your nutrition. Depending on like how you grew up, a lot of people, you hear this like big thing about the freshman 15. Don't expect to get the freshman 15.
What is the freshman? Let me interrupt you for a quick second. What is the freshman 15? What exactly is that? Is that gaining 15 pounds within your freshman year? Is that what you're speaking of?
So I would say a lot of people think about the freshman 15 as a weight gain. Because you're coming to college and you have a lot of access to unhealthy foods in large amounts. And so you have to have more portion control and self-control and think about what you're putting in your body. But I would say now that I've graduated, the freshman 15 is an idea or a word that kind of just encapsulates like the change in your weight based off the change in your environment. Because you can lose 15 pounds and that could be due to depression or, anxiety or like eating disorders that you've had in high school and you are adjusting to a new environment to manage. Or it could be, you're coming to college and you're just eating a little bit more because you have access to it. Or it could be, mental health reasons. Maybe you're taking different medications. And so I always say like, expect to have a change in your body because of a fluid of things, but also expect to be patient with yourself because even if you lose weight or you gain weight, expect to see yourself grow and evolve because who you come in and look in as a freshman is not going to be who you come on to look as a senior. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, I would say in that process it's really important to have like self-love and be patient with yourself because eating right or like battling with like mental health issues that may impact your weight is definitely a journey. And you never know like how it's going to change. Some people coming to college come in the same size. And, maybe, know that people have different body types and you may not be used to that from coming from high school and how people think about their body types and what they eat and put in their body. So know that you're going to be different when you come in. So maybe be intentional with like, what type of diet do you want to have and what you put in your system? Because what you eat also impacts how you study and how you could perform in class too.
Okay. So you were an RA. How many years?
I have one more expectation.
Okay.
Going back to being an RA is that expect to think that everyone drinks or engages in drugs because that's a college hype, especially if you go to a Big Ten school or some school with a lot of sports centric. But I would say only like 20%, at least at the University of Michigan, it's not as high as you think that people engage in those type of activities. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. So expect to feel like, there is this drinking and like culture where you're engaging in all these different things to put in your body, but it's really not as many people as it feels like that are doing that.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. So as a former RA, tell me what you ran across most often in your more senior and seasoned years as an RA. What problems and challenges did you run across most often that most newer students were experiencing?
I would say it would be the top three. So I would be roommate conflicts. So as a freshman, majority of freshmen live in the dorms and they have a roommate. And so a lot of times it's not someone it's someone who comes from a different background, so has different values and interests, hobbies, friends. And like as an RA, roommate conflicts are very popular just because as a high school student, you may have grown up and had your own room your whole life, maybe only child, or you may grow up in a household that does things very differently, but now you're put into a room with someone completely different, and there's going to be conflict that arises, but you've never had to manage that type of conflict on your own. And so like as an RA, that's one thing that I've had to come in often and kind of like just mitigate like some issues like, oh, well, this person, I'm cold all the time. Why do they leave the window open? Just encouraging like, well, let's perspective take that. Have you guys had a conversation about it? Like one thing I encourage at the University of Michigan, we do roommate contracts for freshmen with the roommates. But if you go to a school or your child is going to a school that doesn't, I encourage, to have the students or your children to have a conversation about like, what do you want in a room? Because, if you don't want someone drinking and having a ton of people over, you have to communicate that early on. Or, if you're an early bird, then you have to communicate that so someone will know. If you're a light sleeper, like these are like all things that are important. And it's important to develop a level of consideration because everyone doesn't have that. But having those conversations can help, know what someone's needs are so that like two people can better accommodate. No roommates are perfect. They will never be perfect. And you'll come in and think that some roommates will be your best friends, and you're wrong. You'll come in with best friends, and you guys won't be best friends. Or you'll come in not knowing people, and you guys could be the best of friends. So each roommate situation is unique to its own. I would say the second thing is like mental health. So there are a lot of residents who come into college with mental health concerns, some that are undiagnosed, or some that are. And, they're adjusting to a new environment. Like depression is really large in college, and it's more of a reoccurring conversation that's going on. Managing stress, is a huge thing because a lot of like college students are coming in with this expectation of who they should be for their parents, for their friends, or even for themselves. And they're really struggling with, performing like they used to in high school, because how you perform in high school may be different than how you perform in college. And that is a hard thing to adjust if you're doing bad in college all this time, but you're still putting in a lot of work. Or, in addition, you have all these different substances around you. So like thinking about like mental health is a huge thing. And then alcoholism, as in not alcoholics, but a lot of residents will binge drink. And this may be their first time because some of them are still 17, some 16. And them not realizing that like if you're not 21, it is illegal and you are a vessel in the residence hall carrying alcohol. So you can go you can get written up and get this on your account and sometimes like go to jail or get kicked out of the residence hall, depending on your level of intoxication and what you may have done. So I would say I've had a couple of those incidents where residents have come in drunk or have done drunk things, like within the residence hall. And that's very inconvenient for the community, because you're like negatively impacting a lot of communities. So I had to do a lot of restorative justice practices, explain like what you've done, how it's impacted the community, and help the resident kind of like rebuild that trust that they lost within the community.
And Alex, do you believe that a lot of this is because, kind of like what you just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, is because this is their first real exposure to all of their newfound independence, and so many of them are still super young, 17, 18 years old. Do you find that it's just because they're acting out because this is their first time being out? Do you see that more often than not?
I would say it's 50-50. You'll be surprised how many kids came into college already doing drugs and drinking. Like the amount of people who are like, okay, I've been doing this since I was a sophomore in high school. Like, what do you mean? Like, I haven't been to no party since I came to college. So okay. I would say it's 50-50. So you do have those kids who come to college or who have like siblings in college, and or they're in high school and they like visit like Northville. Like my little brother says like, oh yeah, like friends who went to school in Northville, they would go up to U of M parties and like drink and stuff. So sometimes you do have those kids who have access and they carry those habits, or they carry this idea of what college is into college when it's not really like that. So they start off like that. And then, you do have those other kids who this is their first time in college and they're like, I want to give this a try, or maybe they feel peer pressured because like binge drinking is huge in fraternities and sororities, like tailgates and partying. And so like it's a new experience and there's not a lot of, I would say there's a lot of education on what drinking really, but when it's like game day and all these things and just rah, there's a lot of social pressure and you're not thinking about in the moment what this is doing to you. And a lot of times you just don't know what it's doing to you until you wake up and you're just like, why are the cops around me?
Yeah, exactly right. So, yeah, exactly. So, okay. From a parental perspective, right? And so, we're freaking some parents out right now with this conversation. They're about
sorry, it's not like this.
No, we are completely freaking. I know, Alex, but we're freaking some parents right out right now. So, from a parental perspective, let's talk about how parents can empower their kids into this first year. Give me 3 do's, like do this, and do this. And then I'm going to ask you to give me 3 don'ts from the parents. Okay. So give me 3 do's first.
I'm going to have to flip it. I'm sorry. I can only think of the don'ts.
Okay. Let's start with the don'ts. Let's start with the don'ts to the parents. Don't what?
So I was, for like 3 years, I was an assistant coordinator for Gear Up, which is a program that helps like students like low income or like minority backgrounds transition into college. And so it's a program and a lot of parents. So I had helped like do dialogue with parents whose children were incoming freshmen. And when we talked about this, like, what is it like to be a parent as your kid transitions into college? And there's like so many different like household experiences and relationship with kids. But one thing that like I've had to like urge them is to say, don't push your expectations on your child, because now your child is entering a world where they can't become who they want to. And a lot of times, like, these kids are taking majors, maybe because that's all they knew when you told them, but because they feel like that's what they need to do and they're not happy. And granted, I know we all like want our kids to be successful and happy, but if you're constantly putting this pressure on your kids, like, let them have a semester where you're not constantly like trying to see their report card and know all their grades, because college is more than your grades. That's one thing I took away. When I graduated from college, honestly, my grades don't matter that much. It's who I know. But like being there as a freshman, you don't know all of that thing. You're very much focused on your grades, and you're not thinking about the experience. So like my don't put so much pressure on your child to get a 4.0 their first year in college, because it is a huge transition. They're no longer in high school. They no longer have their own structure. So these kids have to learn time management. They have to learn how to restudy for different classes. They have to learn how to eat correctly. They have to learn how to build friendships, which is very hard if you don't have your own social group with you. They have to learn how to be independent, how to be alone. There's a lot of things that they're learning outside of the classroom that makes first semester very challenging for a lot of freshmen. So I would say, like, which transitions to a do. Like, do ask your kid about what are you doing other than classes? Because all kids don't fail, but when I came to college, my first semester sucked. I failed every first exam I had. But there was so much like going on outside of that was great.
Yeah.
Like I met some really cool friends. I like found some things that I was interested in, But even if your kid is not doing well and they want to talk to you about it, or you ask and they're receptive in the conversation, I say do ask, like, what can I do to help you? Or even maybe if you do know what to do, give them some autonomy and independence, because that's what they came to college for. So do ask them like what's going on with outside activities, but also like try to help them figure things out, because a lot of times like it's not just working hard and studying. Sometimes maybe that's not the major that they really want, and maybe they're not putting in effort. Like sometimes it's not just put in hard work, so understand that like your child may be different from when they came into college. So there's another one. I would say do understand that who your child is coming into college is not going to be who they are a month later, 3 months later, 4 months later, a year later. Your child is like constantly evolving. So I would say like manage your own expectations of your child. Do some self-reflection, like as a parent, to think about, why do I want is this what my kid wants? And do I know what my kid wants? Because at some point you won't know, because your kid has so many vast experiences and is learning so much about themselves, and it's like developing their own sense of self-awareness. So, through that process, like do some check-ins, like, hey, like, what are you doing lately? Like, what are you interested in? Like, not always maybe like, what do you want to do when you graduate? Because I promise you, we don't know. Nobody knows. We're just all looking to have a job at some point. But we do have interests and hobbies, and we will love to make them into careers, because we're that generation. It's like, how can we turn our passion into action?
Yeah.
So, do those check-ins just to figure out who your child is. Like every time you talk to your child, maybe every other time talk about grades, but just talk to them as a person, because they might come out and be like, college sucks right now, but don't tell them, oh no, it shouldn't suck, do this and this, that. Just listen and just be like, oh, really? Why? Like, what's going on? Like, I think just having a parent that listens, because you no longer need your parent in college to tell you what to do and how to do it. Because you have mentors, you have teachers, you have friends who think they know what they're doing, but they really don't, just like you. But you have a lot of resources in college. But what you want from a parent is someone who would just listen and not try to like dictate what you should do, because sometimes parents don't always know based off the situation. Sometimes they do, but maybe hold back the advice unless they request it sometimes.
Yeah, and
other times you do need to get some.
Exactly, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to double and triple support that point. It is difficult for parents, Alex, as I'm sure you are well aware. The relationship transitions, it changes into a completely different relationship. The reality is, up until the day that we send you all off and, we drive you up to the school and we drop you off, up until that day, we have been, for all practical purposes, responsible for every decision that you've made, everything that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we haven't totally been responsible for it, we have let ourselves believe that we have been responsible for everything, and we've been in control of everything that you've done up until this point. And then there's this thing that happens when we drop you off, and there needs to be a transition in the mindset where we accept and understand that what we're really hoping to do is empower you into young adults who are going to be able to think the way you need to think so that you can evolve into the person that you want to become. And it's not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm speaking to all the parents right now. I know it's not easy. It is not easy. And it is so important to do, because you're right, Alex. The relationship needs to evolve into something that's not as much direct parenting, that's more mentoring and just empowering, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would say, lastly, like one do is you need to trust your child, because they're gonna fuck up in college, they're gonna mess up, they're gonna make mistakes. You may not even know about any of them. You may know about all of them, but it's gonna happen. But that's a part of the process. But you have to trust that this is your kid's process. It's not going to be yours, and you have to trust that they may not be doing the best thing for themselves sometimes, and sometimes they will be, but that they're gonna make it through.
Yeah, and I do believe that that's where we as parents have to lean into, hopefully, everything that we've done up until that point to plant seeds that weren't too damaging, and that hopefully will lead to the decisions that need to be made. And you're right, everyone has their own path. And what you learn and grow and understand is that even once you're complete when you're finished with your college education experience and you go off into the real world, 5 years from then, you're going to change into somebody completely different. And then 5 years from that, you're going to change it to somebody completely different. And you just keep evolving and changing. So parents, grown-ups, folks, listen, as much as you are still changing, your kids are evolving and changing as well. So we have to be patient and allow them on that journey, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would say also, like, another do would be empathetic, because there may be a lot of things that you can't relate to or you just don't understand, because maybe you and your child think differently, you've had different experiences, but just be empathetic to whatever they're going through, because some parents may have kids who say, I need a semester off after this first semester. And in your brain, you're like, what do you mean? Like, all you've done is party. Like, this is your first semester. College is the best time of your life. But there may be a lot of things that you don't know, or maybe they do try to explain it to you. It's that, like, sometimes college takes a long time. Like, college in 4 years isn't the norm anymore. It's great if it is 4 years, but it's not bad if it's 5 years, 6 years. But these are conversations that are important to have, especially if you're like self-financing it. Have these conversations with your kids to figure out how long they're going to be in school.
Exactly.
But, like, depending on your situation, like, it may just be hard for your kid to do it in 4 years, but listen to, like, why they can't do it in 4 years. Is it, like, harder classes? Is it, like, managing other things? Do they want to, like, travel and get other experiences? Maybe it's college not for them. But try to be empathetic, because, like, as kids, we are getting to know ourselves very well. And we are trying to understand what are we internalizing and how do we communicate? And then in turn, how do we make a decision for ourselves that's best for ourselves? Because at the end of the day, we're still kids in college, but we're just like adult kids. So we're given all of this, like, autonomy, and, we're paying, like, if you go to Ivy League, too much money, but if you go to public school, still a lot of money, to go to college and, like, go to class and have fun and make relationships and party and, like, gain all these mentorships and resources. But, we still don't know what we're doing. We're figuring out along the way, but we don't have to be an adult yet. We still don't have to, well, some of them. Some kids don't have to be adult yet, and some kids still have a lot more responsibility. So I would say for those kids who, have the freedom to still be a kid, know that they're a kid, but they're growing into an adult. And for those kids who have had a lot of responsibility in high school due to various reasons, and go to college and still have these responsibilities, it's still important to realize they're a kid. And that they probably still want to have an easier life while in college, but they still have to work, or they still have to take care of their family, or they still have financial constraints to their clients that can't do certain things. Because they're also figuring it out along the way too. So be empathetic, because there's a lot of things that are changing with your kid, and wants and needs that they want. And they don't always have a friend or someone to listen to. So as a parent, you might be that person.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome.
That is wonderful advice. And I want to say, Alex, thank you so much for being my guest today. And I want to tell you that you have just offered so much amazing insight to so many parents that are stepping into this, and so many young people that are going to be stepping into this opportunity. So thank you for all of your insight, your honesty, your transparency. And I must say to you that I am so super proud of you as the young person that you have become, excited for your future, and excited to just watch you grow to your next level. I can't even express the level of just pride that I have for the person that you have become. So thank you so much for taking the time to share and to be with us today.
Oh, no, this was fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, I am so grateful that you're here with me on this journey. And I want to invite you to connect with me on Instagram at Swift Talk. And then look me up on YouTube at Swift Talk with Sherry Swift. Make sure that you subscribe for inspiration, motivation, and upcoming podcast details. Do not forget to subscribe. And then visit me on my website at www.sherryswift.com to stay connected through growth and coaching opportunities, classes, trainings. Comment wherever you're listening and tell a friend, because my goal is absolute explosive connections in order to be a life-impacting resource for more and for many. Bring somebody along with you. Life is simply delicious, my friends. Let's enjoy a great big old slice of it together. Until next time.
You've been listening to Swift Talk with Sherry Swift. If you would like to schedule time with Sherry, download the show notes and much, much more. Find it all at www.sherryswift.com.